actions versus words. That's the precept.
Actions versus words.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's very applicable, especially, in our line of business, not just as employees or, rehab or whatever, but, and I know like for families, there's a lot of distrust there with the clients until they see them walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's huge in our line of work because um actions, not words, right? Yeah. So unfortunately, all addicts in some way, shape, or form are usually liars.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a harsh way of putting it. They're usually dishonest. They can't be trusted on their word. Um, and loved ones are sick of hearing it. They're sick of hearing, uh, you know, all the all the lip service, all the empty promises. Oh no, I'm gonna stop. No, uh, you know, all that stuff,
Yeah.
right?
It definitely makes it difficult for clients to make amends because it's like the words are nice, and sometimes hearing the apology and the acknowledgement of wrongdoing, that goes a long way. But then there's that period where you've got to, where the families wait and see if they're able to follow up on all the things that they're saying and promising. So it's not like an easy fix, just taking accountability and responsibility. There actually has to be action involved as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the way that we do amends. We encourage the clients to ask whoever they're making amends to, like, in what ways can I make my wrongs right? You know, and and sometimes, the person on the other end has some really good stuff for them, like, I want you to go to, you know, a meeting, 5 days a week. And,
Mhm.
I want you to give me, $20 for 2 years, every Friday or something, right? Just to kind of
Yeah.
like pay back or, you know, um, but, I think it's an interesting process, and I think the person on the other end, if they're also in a good headspace getting help, they may come up with better things for when that question does come up. A lot of the time, parents are like, "Oh, we love you, and we just want you to stay sober," and there's
Right.
not really like, what can you do to make your wrongs right? So there's a little bit of education that can help repair and you know, rebuild
Yeah.
that relationship.
Well, and it's also a therapeutic process. So, it's good when families and clients can come together on something that starts to make up the damage more or less, but also, sort of prove that they've changed. And so just staying sober, I mean, I guess that's not hard to prove. You could just UA somebody, but at the same time, there's got to be more active action, I think, as opposed to because I think that can also backfire because if the person's just sober, but they're sitting at home just watching TV all day and eating and,
Mhm.
having their parents pay for the bills, just being sober really isn't enough. There like needs to be a little more action there than just being sober. And I think this is where it's really good for us to coach and say, we actually need and want a little more than just that
Yeah,
for the greater good of the individual and the family.
yeah, yeah. How is this precept applied, like, after treatment for you and in your adult life, or I
Yeah,
guess,
well, I
like
think
with your
when I look at
family.
it, it's just like us as Elevate as a whole. And again, what kind of separates us is our action. So we kind of lead from the front. So I'm not asking clients to do CrossFit when we're not in there doing CrossFit, and we're not having the clients do things that we ourselves haven't done or are doing. And so I think that's where we build a lot of trust with our clients. Is we our actions back up what we're preaching. We're not just preaching something because we learned it in a book or I heard this is good practice. We're coming from a place that we've actually put it into practical application, and we're not asking anybody to do something that we don't do or haven't done. And I think that's partly why we're super successful, because I just assumed that everybody behaves this way, but that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of CEOs or presidents or even high up level people who manage from this very high up elevated location, like ivory tower ish, as opposed to being on the ground floor and in there doing the work and leading by example with their actions.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you were just coaching CrossFit with the clients last night.
Yeah. Yes. And I've gotten a lot more
Getting
comfortable
dirty.
with that. I've gotten a lot more comfortable. And it really does. It's like anything. It's just doing the reps,
Hmm.
seeing stuff, handling stuff, knowing stuff. You start to like, well, although this brand new client was like, "You're really intense. I'm nervous." I was like, "Oh, shoot. Okay." I'm not trying to be intense over here. But it is what it is.
Good for them for saying it though, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. He made it through okay, though.
Yeah.
I just had him use the training bar because, of course, he
Yeah.
had this injury and he didn't want to get hurt. And I kept it super light. I don't stress as much. And I mean, our CrossFit gym's way different than, outside CrossFit gyms, because we're dealing with people's fitness levels not being anywhere near like what you would get out there straight out of detox, and they're only with us a few months. So I've learned not to sweat the small shit. Like, I'm way more concerned about just ensuring that they had a good workout. They felt good by the end of it. It's a lot different than other gyms, I think, for that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that precept of, yeah, actions speak louder than words is really important for our clients to just like maybe check themselves, because I think they get so in, they're so defensive. They want to talk their way through they want to talk their way out of
Mm.
every mistake that they make, or even, like we've seen this. I can think of a lot of people, a lot of clients that I work with where they're just telling you how great they're doing all the time. They just love telling you how great they're doing. And it's like, okay, well, just show me,
Mm.
show me you
Hmm.
doing good,
Right. Show up on time, make your
show up on
bed.
time and do, help somebody else, like
Yeah.
not that I like want to like, uh, dampen their mood or whatever, but just like their families are probably, wanting that same thing. Like, no, show me the work. You have to put in the work. You have to, uh, you know, be in recovery. You just can't just go to treatment and then, call it all done. You have to continue to work on yourself. You have to continue to do what's needed, build that community, build, uh, yeah, those relationships with other people in recovery,
Hmm.
continue with counseling or therapy, continue to educate yourself, raise your awareness level to a point where, you're just starting to become more and more aware of, how maybe you have, um, or maybe the things that we're blind to, there's a lot of behaviors in all of us where we just don't really notice them unless we stop and take a look or hear somebody else's story, and then we're like, oh, I do that too. I do that
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also I think there is so much to the Elevate program. It's constant action and accountability. There's so much. You got to do your chore, you got to eat your breakfast, you got to show up on time, you got to make your bed, you got to, you don't have to, but then there's lunch and you socialize. There's block. Now there's fitness. There's a lot of things to be actionable and work where we're literally teaching people how to do life, but do it better. I know a lot of other programs, you'll just sit around, smoke some cigarettes, do a meeting. Now it's lunch, get on the phone, scroll on your social media. You have your phones. There's not like a lot of life and living in action. Whereas we're cramming a lot in a short amount of time and really trying to restructure and reprogram people for more healthy, beneficial things. Because as we know, boredom could definitely lead back to a relapse for sure. If people are like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with myself. If they don't like learn how to self-entertain, they're going to go back to what used to work, which is just a drink or getting high. And now all of a sudden I'm not bored anymore.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we really gives good structure,
Yeah.
and it keeps the clients accountable, keeps them uh yeah, not there's not a lot of downtime, which is really good for, cravings and keeping people um yeah, just kind of, moving through their day, moving through their day. I think the clients always say, the days are long, but the weeks fly, or something like that. They have like that
Yeah.
saying, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, structure is huge, and yeah, yeah, so many opportunities to be actionable, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, showing up on time, doing good work and block, participating, when there's kind of like an open opportunity to share, giving feedback to somebody else or showing support to someone else, being a good listener. Like, I mean, yeah, can you look like you're engaged when somebody else is talking? Like, there's a lot of opportunity to show up and be your best self, and a lot of people struggle doing that, and they work through that in treatment. And a lot of the time when they get to the end, they are that all-star client, and they're really vibing on all those opportunities.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how like we continually see, and I'm not talking like within Elevate, but poor communication, like just normal communication skills of like listening and acknowledging and letting the other person speak and have their full thought without interrupting or interjecting your own stuff into it. Like there's a definite like sort of skill to that I feel just by doing the Elevate program, a lot of people have a leg up on the rest of the world because I've noticed that a lot of people don't have great communication skills.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating to try to have communications with people when they're lacking the basics. But again, that's like nothing you're actually taught in school. That's just something you like learn from families or social or situations. So there's not really formal training on communication, but it's amazing how few people lack it. And I love hearing at graduation how people really appreciated learning how to actually communicate and hear somebody and be there with them and not make it about themselves. Because as we know, addicts, and it's almost a very self-centered, I don't want to call it a disease, but you're very self-centered. So it's almost like you have to learn how to actively listen to somebody else without making it about you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, the environment does, and there's a lot of vulnerability, when people are talking, and you start to respect each other's time, like, or maybe not in that right. Respect when somebody's speaking more, there's a lot of opportunities where um, maybe there is a client that's not very talkative and they finally share, and you're like, wow, you like really start to engage and listen, and you respect those moments where people are communicating with each other, and in a larger setting, you don't want to just jump in and cut someone off, and that's also why we have a facilitator that can also kind of liaise any sort of rude
Mm,
interruptions and things like that. But yeah, just in the communication skills that we do teach, I mean, there's, a couple key ones that we focus on just to kind of help clients set boundaries, so they don't get walked all over. And it also, yeah, can help them deal with situations when they're feeling triggered, because often there's, people in their lives can make things a little tough, and especially in early recovery. So they learn some skills to kind of set some boundaries, and yeah, and I think that gives them, yeah, that edge that you're talking about on, like, communicating compared to the rest of the world. It's not necessarily something that is focused on at all. Like, I can't remember one class in you know elementary
Yeah.
school, high school, college that I took that was focused on communicating, just like in just your day-to-day kind of setting. And we do that. We provide clients with that.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, we started off the conversation because of actions being greater than words. And now we have, come full circle where words are really important and good communication is key. And I think if you don't have good communication, I mean, then your actions do speak louder. And, so what are they saying? Is it saying good things or is it saying not good things? Like if you're not a smooth talker, if you're not good at, like you were saying, like, clients want to tell you how good they're doing or, convince you of other things. If your actions aren't speaking louder than that, um, I think it's important to have both. Like as we're talking through it, it's important to have good actions, but also good communication. And it's vital that those match because if your actions aren't backing up your communication or vice versa, that's where the distrust is. And that's where, people will really struggle outside of rehab, really anywhere, is if those two things aren't matching.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely, yeah, two sides to every situation, right? You know, um, or there's the like extremes. You could have a lot of great action and just like not communicate at all,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or you could, yeah, communicate too much and not have a lot of action, and so, yeah, being strong in both is super important. And yeah, I think that yeah, being a strong communicator, like communicating your feelings, setting boundaries is really, really helpful in recovery, and speaking up when things are bothering you. I think there's a lot of shame in, surrounding recovery, and with that kind of that shame, and that there's a lot of sensitivity, and so people in recovery have a hard time, saying no, or you know um, they don't want to upset people around them because they already feel like an upset.
Yeah.
Why would you want to upset your family when you feel like you're already that? So you tend to hold things in, you tend to hold things back, you tend to hold back your struggles. You don't want to come home, how was your day? You want to say, it was great, because you don't want to you don't want to shake anything, up, or
Yeah.
disrupt anything. Everyone needs to be doing okay. Everyone's got to be okay.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean, I
yeah.
think we all know that feeling, that kind of vibe. Um, you know, Whether it's at work or with your family or in your relationship, that kind of vibe is definitely prevalent sometimes, where you are, yeah, a little. You don't want to rock the boat,
Yeah.
and so you're finding the right words, finding the right tone, showing up as your best self, and communicating, not like disrupting everyone, but like learning how to say, well, today was pretty tough, and I had a moment where I was a little triggered, or when you said that, I felt triggered, and we talk about, that's like a very common, like, I statements, right? It's very common in therapy, couples counseling, and it's a great tool, for dealing with difficult situations. But yeah, just kind of further elaborating on your thought of how communication is important.
Yeah. Well, and I think also it is a two-way street because I know I've been involved in certain situations with certain relationships where it was not necessarily safe for me to communicate as a leader or as a person, because as a parent, where people are looking to you for stability. And if you're showing some instability, there's an inability to handle that. It like shakes people's worlds. So it's interesting because communication is vital, and boundaries are important. But boy, it can definitely get tricky with a lot of different scenarios, like in life, where either communicating isn't safe, or people aren't able to receive what you need to have. And like guys, like you have this innate sense of wanting to fix things. So it's difficult to hear a woman just wanting to sort of vent or have a problem without the guy feeling like, I got to fix this. Now I have a problem. And it's like, no, no, I was just, telling you about my day. I don't need you to fix anything. And I think that's where like the pre-frame is really important. I mean, I wish I had that skill like 20 years ago of like, I just need to vent. You don't need to fix it. I don't need any answers. I just want to get it over with. I think that pre-frame is really important because, man, you guys just like to fix shit. And if you can't fix it, you get real pissed.
Well, we don't like to see the women in our life suffer.
Ah,
We don't want to see them suffer, and it hurts us. So we want
yeah.
to try to make it better for them. That's come up.
Mm,
That's come up in my life, and I've kind of explored like, why do I do that?
yeah.
You know, why would I do that? Like, well, you're right. Like, I don't need to fix anything. Like,
Yeah.
nothing needs to be fixed. But like, like, where's it coming from? You know,
Yeah.
it's coming from
Yeah.
a place of like, yeah, we want you to be okay. You know,
Oh, that's kind of
you know what I
sweet when
mean?
you put it like that. That makes it sound
Yeah.
all sweet.
Like, yeah, I mean, you gotta, there's so many layers to to like stuff like that, right? You
Yeah.
know, like, okay, yeah, that's so true. And it's so common for men to, yeah, drink more water. Like, like, it's like throw
Did you
out,
sleep good last night? Maybe you just need a
yeah,
full night's sleep.
throw out some just like
Yeah.
solution oriented thing, you
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
like,
Have you worked out today? Maybe you need a workout.
yeah, like when you really check in with yourself, it's like, all right, well, where the heck is this coming from?
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe it's not always coming from that point, but I can say that I've been in a few situations where I've thrown out some solutions, and I think that was the root of where it was coming from. But yeah,
Yeah. Would you say, and I pretty much know the answer to this, you partake in actions or no? And I know you don't. This is just a theoretical question about, actions speaking louder than words. Would you rather take action and then explain yourself later? Or would you rather say, I'm going to do this and then do it?
um, it just depends on the
I
circumstances.
know that wasn't like an either or. They're like different
I can't.
scenarios, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's if there's no context, I can't logically give. I can't like take a stand on either side. Like there's got to be context. I'm not
True.
I'm not like one way or another. Like I've done both.
Yeah.
And you have your reasons. Um,
Do you think actions speak louder than words?
um, yeah, I think so. I mean,
Because anyone can have words, not anyone can have action.
yeah. I I mean, words are very powerful too, though. I think it's like in recovery, I think that statement's a good one for people to hold on to in regards to like rebuilding relationships with their family. I think that like is a really strong I think it does like kind of uh take priority. Like you just need to get in, you need to act, you need to, you know, do what you need to do. You do the recommendations, do what's recommended. And yeah, it's like a good rule of thumb, you know. I wouldn't say it's a constant. I do think are times where, communicating like thoughts and feelings and emotions, like there's a lot of complexities to us, and having communication about those types of things is important. Like you can't, um, I'm trying to think of a good example of how that's not true or, but, but yeah, I think so. A little bit of a mixed feeling. I think it's
Yeah.
great for early recovery and great for certain situations, but with like the, thoughts and expression and creativity and things like that, I think, yeah, communication can be super powerful, but you also have to like carry it through and deliver.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think I think Andrew Huberman there was a study that like if you have a goal, don't tell anyone about it, like, because
Yeah.
as soon as you do, it's gonna like take away from you being ambitious or about that goal now. Um,
That's interesting because I think it can work both ways. I think it's good to build in accountability as well. Like when I say I'm going to do 75 hard, I put it out there as a level of accountability because I don't want to go back on my word. So I will put my word out there so that I will be accountable to myself for that word. So I think that could work in both directions.
yeah,
I would
yeah.
like to hear his podcast on that, like his theory, because I know like with like accountability, it's good to have a word. And I think that's also really important too for building trust. You say you're going to do it, then you do it. You say you're not going to do it and you don't do it. You've got to put it out there and then you follow through. And even with others, that's how we build trust in ourselves, is by saying we're going to do something and following through and doing it. So I think there's a lot of power into communicating and to set that metric for us to be held accountable by ourselves or by other people, at least for me, because I don't like putting something out there and then going back on it. So I will put it out there because I know I want to hold that metric out there, because then I'm going to feel compelled to follow through.
Mm, you don't want to disappoint others.
Or even myself.
Mm,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah, that's the thing, right? Is with all stuff like this, there's always the other side of the coin, you know? There's always
Yeah,
someone who benefits more from the opposite. And yes, I see that. Yeah, thinking back, yeah. Um, I see how that's played a role in keeping you on track with certain goals that you've had for sure.
sure. Well, like let's look at it from smoking viewpoint. How many people do we know said I'm going to quit and then you still see them smoking? It's like, bro, I thought you were going to quit. Whereas if they just quit and then tell anybody about it, all of a sudden we go, holy shit, you quit. So
Mm,
it's interesting. So there is definitely people who just say it but have no follow through. They're almost like empty words. But then there's that put it out there because they want to be held accountable to it because they don't want to go back on that.
yeah, yeah. But at the end of the day, no one can be accountable for you but yourself.
Absolutely.
You know?
Thank God.
So there's that.
Thank God. I mean, you got small kids. There's some accountability you got there until they're, able to take care of themselves for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I guess
If you
it's
left Ashton up to his own devices, he'd be eating
in the
uh
context of kids. Yeah,
crappy food, lots of sugar, staying up all night, doing whatever he wants. Like that would be
yeah,
frightening.
yeah. That's the way it is when you're a young adult too. You know,
True.
make all those mistakes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. And then there is something to learning the hard way too. And there's a lot of people who see others do it and that's enough for them. And then there's the more hard-headed people like ourselves who have to experience ourselves to make our own decisions.
yeah, yeah. Can't you can't tell me what to do. I have to go through the process myself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
learning the hard way.
Yeah. Rebelliousness.
Maybe, yeah, maybe, or just maybe just ego and stubbornness, stuff like that too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But
Awesome. Awesome, Tom. Well, thank you. I do enjoy this subject a lot of action speaking louder than words. And as we explored, it's kind of, I think it's dual sided. I think words are pretty powerful too.
yeah,
So I think that, having a healthy balance of both. But again, you want to rebuild trust with yourself and others. Just follow through on the word that you're given, or just don't say it. But that should be the metric. Don't say something if you're not going to do it, and don't do something if you're not going to follow through.
I agree. Awesome.
All right, cool.